Welcome to the Leadership Puzzle, where we break down the challenges of modern leadership and help you put the right pieces together. I'm your host, Jeff Lupinacci, and today I am joined by someone whose leadership story is as powerful as it is personal. Nancy Keane is a seasoned executive with experience leading strategy and operations across health tech, consulting, as well as nonprofit sectors. She has served as COO and SVP of business and clinical operations. But what truly sets her apart is how she leads. She leads with presence, with purpose, humor, and a lot of grit. She was born and raised on City Island in the Bronx. I've never actually met anyone from there, but she is a single mom to a special needs son, a kidney donor, a board member, and a volunteer judge for the Regeneron Science Competition. She is known for her ability to unify teams, eliminate the swirl that companies have, and bring both heart and discipline to complex systems. You're going to hear wisdom, candor, and a kind of leadership toughness that doesn't hide its humanity. I am so thrilled to have Nancy on the Leadership Puzzle. Welcome.
Jeff, thank you so much. What a wonderful, wonderful introduction. I think we can stop here. You said it all. This has been fantastic.
Oh, well, if there were just a few things that I had spoken about in the introduction, we probably could have, but you've got some stories that the listeners have to hear. All right, so your story begins in the Bronx, City Island. What is City Island?
Allen has a little nickname that it gave to itself that nobody else uses, and so I'll help promote it here. Let's call it the Nantucket of the Bronx, shall we? It's a little tiny island. It's a mile long. It's a half-mile wide. There's only one little bridge and street on and off. That's it. It is located in the Northeast Bronx. So for any of your listeners who have been to New York City and rode the subway, and you look at any subway map, if you go to the top right of the subway map and you almost think you see something that's designated there, but there's no subway that leads to it, that's City Island. It's an area that is mistaken for a certain kind of lifestyle because it's surrounded by water, because it's an island. I am here to tell you that it is let's call it a scrappy environment. It is one where everyone would aspire to maybe going to college. Many families just don't have anybody in the family who went to college. I'm the first person in my entire family who went to college. There's no police station on City Island. There's no high school there. As soon as you want to go to high school, you are going off the island, just way out into the Bronx and the surrounding areas. Yeah. It's populated by generational seasonal workers largely because it's nautical. Many people there are riggers and they understand how to work with fiberglass sailboats. They might work in boat yards, taking the boats in and out of the water. Many of the seafood restaurants are still closing from, let's say, October to March, closing for the winter. So people might come to City Island, very transient, to work, maybe on the books, maybe off, I don't know. And then they'll leave and then they might come back. There are a lot of apartments there that used to be garages. There's no permits really that people ask for. It's kind of like the Wild West in the Northeast Bronx. That's City Island.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
So you grew up on this like little piece of real estate that very few people have heard of in the Bronx. And you made it to the boardroom, but in a very non-linear kind of way. So talk to me about your early childhood. You have some really fascinating stories that really shaped who you are and the leader that you become today.
Thank you for asking me. I love revisiting this. My father and mother are from the South Bronx. My father moved to City Island when he was 3 years old and was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And this was during the Great Depression. And so in the Depression and any other times in any other place where people are having hard times financially, you know it's very hard to get your hands on protein, and people tend to eat starch, whether it's rice or spaghetti or potatoes and things. But if you're a diabetic with no access to insulin, you can't even eat that because the starch, that turns into sugar. He would eat dandelions. He would literally go to the side of the road with my grandmother and pull dandelions and try to get a little bit of salt, which they obtained by boiling the salt water in a coffee can. This is, everybody was going through these kinds of things during that time, and eat dandelions. So to say that he grew up resourceful is an understatement. He lost his sight when he was 29. It took about a year. This is diabetic retinopathy. There's a prevention for it now. There wasn't back then. He totally lost his sight. And while that was happening, he had already become a captain of sailboats, a commercial captain for powerboats. He was a captain for Perry Como and Frank Sinatra and took them out on their boats. But then he lost his sight, and he was in the boat business for so long that he decided eventually he was going to open up his own boatyard after he lost his sight, if other people would help him out a little bit, and they did. And he didn't meet my mother until after he drove around with us. Then she looked olive oil from Papa. And so, of course, he never saw my brother or I.
Mm.
But because he was sighted, Jeff, he would ask me all the time as a very little girl, Nance, he used to call me Nance. Nance, what does the sunset look like? What do the clouds look like now? I feel the temperatures dropping. I feel the wind is picking up. What is the water doing? What is the current doing? How does the sand look different than it did an hour ago? Your mother got a haircut, somebody told me. How does it look different? I want to say something nice to her. And so I was in a position of having to observe and describe and watch how he was in a position of having to acutely listen, because couldn't see.
Yeah.
So together, we could have started our own CIA with the powers that we developed. And I think that has been a thread of mine that has taken me all the way through my life in every single way is I can help you see. I can help you listen. I will listen and I will translate. I will see and I will translate. So I think that's a real gift that my father's disability gave to me and anyone else who was willing to help him in that way.
I love it.
His name was Leo Keane. I just love saying his name.
All right. Well, shout out to Leo Keane.
He hears you. He hears you up there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, so you decide that you're gonna be the first person in your family to go to college and get a career, presumably off the island.
Yes.
And when we were talking, you said that your career is somewhat like a stained glass window, right? It's got some zigzags and edges and abrupt edges and lots of color. But all of that has been a strategic advantage for you in your journey. So why don't you kind of share that journey from kind of university to where you are today, and maybe hit a couple of the high points for our
Sure.
listeners.
Yeah, thank you for asking. Yeah, I love the stained glass window analogy. One of the things that I like about it is that there's a utility to it, of course, like any window has, but there is also so many different facets to it if you choose to appreciate it in that way. And there's beauty and there's subjectivity and objectivity built into it. I went to school for my bachelor's at Pace University. I was a commuter and I was working in a restaurant on City Island, a fancy seafood restaurant on City Island. So I was commuting and working. And when I started to go to Pace, I became aware of career opportunities and places to work like we all did. And I was very fortunate enough to be recruited as an intern when I was graduating by PepsiCo corporate headquarters. And that's in a town nearby here. And the name of the town is called Purchase, New York. So it's their world headquarters. All of their executives for all their brands were there. And man, what a wonderful thing that was. In the vegetable drawer of my parents' house, my father used to keep Coca-Cola. He needed sugar, close
Sure.
by. No one could touch that drawer, no matter what. And he emptied it and he brought it to my neighbor's house and said, "You can throw this out or you can drink it, but we're drinking Pepsi now." And I recommend you do the same. Wonderful corporate training, very competitive, very nuanced. I was there. I learned to serve the shareholders. I didn't know what shareholders were. I worked in the corporate benefits department, and I was there and I saw the salaries that people made as part of my role in
Sure.
you know, and it was astounding to me. But I couldn't really marry it up with all this money we're paying all these people, and that's just corporate. What's the company doing besides the thing with the shareholders and the pizza and the soda? And it just struck me deeply that that's what we're doing. And I realized that I was mission driven and I didn't know. I thought I was success driven. It was
Yeah.
a very go time in our civilization, like the late 1980s, early 90s.
Great is
So
good. Gordon
I
Gekko,
know.
great is good at Wall Street for sure.
Exactly. I have to show that movie to my son. So I decided I needed something else, and I broke into healthcare. When I say broke in, I mean it. I had to take a role that nobody else wanted because I didn't have any experience. And people who did have experience were not interested in the very old, well-worn community health center in the South Bronx that was part of this health system. It was opened in, I think, 1981. It had never been renovated. There were three different labor unions there. The community was made up of people who had uh, extremely acute issues, extremely chronic, hard to manage issues, psychosocial issues. It was a refugee relocation area for people that were fleeing from Pol Pot, Cambodia. And the building was massive. When I was there, we were doing almost 80,000 visits a year.
Wow.
We
Wow.
also had a residency program, the country's first it was called the residency program in social medicine, Jeff. And it was a way to teach doctors how to deal with a whole cornucopia of psychosocial and family medicine issues together, learning how to speak Spanish, learning how to speak a bunch of different languages, and understanding how to work with Medicaid. Ryan White funded Article 28 within those auspices. It was an incredible place. I was in charge of facilities. I've cleaned up mercury spills. I've drained the boiler. We didn't have any real technology there when I started. And so bringing everybody along with me there and seeing the mission and the powerful passion that the clinicians and all the staff had was the complete opposite of PepsiCo to me. And of course, there was no money. We were reliant on federal funds, which brought a ton of overhead with it. So you had to learn about that
Yeah.
or losing and writing grants. But I was there for almost 5 years and I helped them automate, I helped them upskill, I helped them schedule and flatten things out so it was more predictable. I had to teach these professors from Albert Einstein College of Medicine that the people in the neighborhood also get sick on Saturdays. And we're paying rent. Seriously, we're paying rent on Saturdays, so we're going to open on Saturdays. And that was like uh, my first lesson in crisis management. I'll put it to you that way. However,
Interesting.
it was the beginning of my healthcare career, and after 5 years, and working very closely with the IT department and facilities departments as I did, I was getting my master's, I was getting an MBA, and it was suggested to me that going down to Memorial Sloan Kettering would be a great next step, and they were right. It was not easy to get hired by Memorial Sloan Kettering, and it shouldn't be, but I went through
And
those paces.
share with the audience really quick
Sure.
what's so special about Memorial Sloan Kettering.
Wow. So many things. First of all, Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center is located on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. It's known as a center of excellence. It's one of the world's greatest cancer centers, and that's all they do. I always get goosebumps when I talk about them. Every single person there, no matter what their job is, they could be frying eggs in the cafeteria or painting a wall in the basement. If you ask them, what is your job here? They will answer you and say, my job is to help cure cancer through research, education, and patient care. That's the job. And that was an incredible mission, just like the health center, but it had the money, not
Yeah.
just like Mexico. But
Yeah.
now we're really innovating. Now we're really funded. We're working with every vendor wants to work with us. And we were doing some amazing new things in the world of perioperative is where I chose to work. Perioperative is before, during, and after surgery. It's where you're going to have the most innovation in a center of excellence. It's where the revenue generation is the highest, so you get the most flexibility. And it's where you'll see interesting vendors come to you, vendors that typically work with places like the Department of Defense first, and this is their next foray. So you're really doing things that no one has seen before. Incredible place.
Nice.
Incredible,
Okay.
incredible place.
Great. Thank you. So you get on with Memorial Sloan Kettering.
And Memorial Sloan Kettering was fantastic. I was there for almost 10 years. Many of the projects and innovations that we put into place have gone through further iterations, but are still being used today, which is lovely to see.
That's fantastic.
But quite frankly, at this point in our story, I am getting divorced. I had my son, Benny, on Christmas Eve in 2003. And this is a little bit later than that. And I'm getting a divorce. And I have a wonderful mentor from my first healthcare job who said to me, Keane, you need to start making some serious money now. And you're not going to make it just with promotions within an organization. You need to go to the dark side and work for a vendor. So I took a leap. So this is another color on the stained glass window, working for a vendor. So now I'm in for-profit. And now I'm working for a publicly traded organization. And they are selling giant EHR solutions, electronic health record solutions, to health systems, like some of the ones I've already worked at. We are billable by the 15-minute increment. I may have spent the first 6 months coming home from work saying to my mom as she waited for me with my son, what have I done? Everybody knew me at Memorial. I was great. I knew what I was doing. Now I'm in front of clients. We're not exactly telling them the truth. And there's all these contracts to deal with, and client satisfaction scores, net promoter scores, revenue recognition. It was an incredible training. And so I'm bringing along with me now pieces that I have picked up in the other places. The corporate training from Pepsi, the big mission, and the ability to understand how doctors live and breathe, from residency to chief professors, the innovation from Memorial Sloan Kettering, and now I'm sitting here working with people all up and down the Northeast is what they eventually gave me, and then Asia Pac. So I had Guam, South Australia, and Singapore. And it was a wonderful way to learn to work with people virtually. That's the first time I ever did that. And then again, all that for-profit stuff and the B2B, the business-to-business aspect was new to me too.
Yeah,
that's incredible. I was there for about 8 years, and I got to know some of the senior leadership at Allscripts through interactions that I was able to help the company through in the Northeast. The Northeast is typically where you have your most mature clients, and that means that they really probably do know the contracts better than you do.
Right.
And will negotiate extremely aggressively when it's needed. And one of those senior executives was an entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur, who invited me to come help him take his brand new startup out of stealth mode. He invited me and many other people. He's well known, and so he wasn't announced yet as the CEO, stealth mode. And so I was one of the first 30 people to work at a company called Transcarent. And Transcarent is an incredible, first of its kind platform. It's going to help people achieve better outcomes without going through the pure insurance workflow. You're not going to hear things like, oh, this is out of network anymore. There's a great deal of virtual services that are provided. Um, it is a place that is still growing and still changing. But that was an incredible other aspect to add to the window because now I'm in an early stage startup.
Right.
And I thought, Jeff, I thought going to an early stage startup um, would be at first a place where people were almost like maker spacing, just working together and hey, everybody, it's less than 30 people here. How institutionalized could it possibly be? I just came from two places that have been around since the 1800s. Silos, my friend. I was so surprised. There were two instances of Salesforce, for example. There were three different project management systems that people
Wow.
were using. And that was a great, great wake up call for me to say, you're going to take this risk and jump. It's not going to be what you think again.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit of the trajectory there. What else can
Yeah.
I tell you?
No, that's great. So, last time we chatted, well, before I do that, that has certainly created this interesting mosaic of who you are and what your career looks like, from nonprofit uh, to public company, uh, as well as startup, and that career trajectory really is fascinating to a lot of people, and I think you hit it in like 5 minutes, but there's so much depth in there. So I remember when we talked last, you were like, "Oh yeah, I'm a chaos whisperer," and I'm like, "Well, I've heard of dog whisperer and horse whisperer, but I don't know that I've ever heard of a chaos whisperer." So uh, what's a chaos whisperer? And maybe give an example of a time of where you, spoke into the chaos and created order.
For asking about that. I I often compare people who are doing this, who need to do this in the moment, as a time during a Star Trek episode where Kirk is losing it, and here comes Spock. So visually, I would think of Spock as a spiritual advisor when you need to be a chaos whisperer. Um, what I've done, one example of that, I mean, there's been so many issues. I was at Memorial Sloan Kettering on 9/11, and I was working for another New York City hospital during COVID-19 right there. But one that I think is applicable for many other people would be this. When I was working at the vendor company, we were using multiple systems and a lot of spreadsheets every Sunday to try to generate a forecast for the following week and a reconciliation of the previous week. A lot of this had to do with our 15-minute increment billing that I mentioned to you before, and being publicly traded and getting the highest level of executives ready for whoever analysts in Wall Street they were going to speak to. But people were also compensated with variable pay structures in this company. And much of their variable pay had to do with whether or not they hit certain thresholds of utilization and productivity. And those wouldn't be posted until these people like me, regional directors, sat down with their spreadsheets and their three other systems and tried to do all this work every Sunday. It was manual, filled with errors. And there were many errors along the way. So at this point now, people's variable pay is messed up. There's a backlog of reconciliations that people like me have to do. There were 6 of us, global company. We are going to continue to make manual errors, and every Sunday a new report comes out. People were threatening to leave. People were threatening to take themselves off of the bench and not do front-facing, client-facing work. And it was an awful disaster. And of course, each time you get closer to the end of the quarter, now you can't prepare the CEO.
Oh yeah.
So the whispering part came in where, I mean, I guess you always sound like you're whispering when everyone else is screaming, but but one of the whispering parts was this. I like to talk about the root cause. And the root cause was we couldn't keep up. We were bottlenecks and we were doing manual processes from multiple systems. So I asked a favor of the finance department and said, for a weekend, please let me spend the whole weekend with your Oracle, Workbench, internal systems, ledger people, whether they're in India or they call, I'll work any hours. And let's figure out if we can just generate something that is quick, easy to use, automated, and does not require me and 5 other people doing this with our calculators on our phones. And we did it, and we called it the Arrows Report. And Sundays went from 6 hours
Should have been called the Keane Report.
That's what I said. That's what I said. But it really changed the game. It was so wonderful. I mean, in an instant, and you could run it when you wanted. So you could start running it on Friday, even though you knew all the timesheets weren't in, but you can get a head start. And it was red, you're in trouble. It was yellow, you're flat. If it was green, you have a fixed fee good guy there. You have revenue to report. You could sort it by contract size so that you could like apply a Pareto to it and say, oh, listen, if I'm only going to do 5, I'm just going to do the 5 highest value contracts. I'll get 80% of the work done. It was fact. It was just the best. And it just completely took the wind out of all of these problems. That's an example of whispering.
Oh, that's great.
Chaos. Because if you try to find out why is Sally so mad and why is Mike so mad, well, you're still not fixing anything. You're never going to fix it. And as another day goes by and you're still another day with a backlog.
Yep.
So that's just one example.
I love what you said that sometimes it sounds like you're whispering when everyone else is screaming. And I think that's a great reminder, really, even for today when you can turn on any TV and it seems like everyone's screaming, and the person that's calm and just speaking normally sounds like they may be whispering, but there's probably some value to what they have to say.
I think I'm the perfect angel, of course. My son will tell you, but if you can just take an opportunity to say, like, if everyone else is screaming, even if it's not natural to me, let me just do the opposite, because I'll be the only one doing the opposite.
Yeah.
Let me look for the root cause. And chances are you're going to find something that no one else is looking at because they're too hot and they're looking in too many different places.
Kind of thinking of listening and whatnot. You like to say that uh, your strategic tools are mirroring and listening. Can you unpack what that kind of uh, dual action strategic tool looks like, and how can you build that into a leadership style?
Sure. Thank you for asking that. I mean, some of this obviously harkens back to the skills I acquired with my father, but what I've learned is that mirroring, whether you're doing it in person or like right now in virtually, is a way for you to become relatable to the other person or people that are on the other side of the screen or the other side of the table. And I mean the most basic ways of mirroring. Sitting like they're sitting. If they're holding a pen like this, then you hold a pen like this. That's a very simple thing to do. Remember, this is like, I'm a very visually oriented person when it comes to relating to people and things, but it works. And soon you may even start using some of the phrases when you're with that group or that person. And if they tend to start a response by saying, I don't know, well, hold on. Maybe that's something that they tend to say. That's their tick when they start to respond. Well, hold on. Then maybe you should start to say, well, hold on. Or their first question to ask sometimes, and you know this, there are people who are presented with an opportunity or a problem, and their first question might be, well, how many times has this happened? Or how much revenue is, whatever their go-to question is, start asking that question around them. They're going to start seeing themselves in you. And by you studying them to get to that point, you will have been making yourself aware of how they work. And there's no, in my opinion and experience, there's no greater way to get through crisis, and there's no greater way to sail through opportunities than to have that cohesiveness. And it's not 100%. You're not abandoning yourself, but you are sort of shape shifting from time to time so that you're relatable to the different people, whether they're above you or parallel or they report to you or they're vendors, whatever it is.
Right.
It's not hard to do if you can take yourself out of yourself.
Yeah.
I
And
think
it is interesting because people like to interact with people who they see themselves in.
mhm,
You
that's
know,
exactly it.
unconsciously. A lot of times it's unconscious, but it's true.
I had a wonderful boss at my last role, and I used to coach people in my organization. Uh, he was new, and his nature was he was a CFO. He is a CFO again, but at this point, he was a co-CEO. And I used to coach people and say, if you're going to bring an issue to Chris, then you're going to need to frame it numerically. If you're going to bring it to the other CEO, you need to frame it clinically. But if you start to see Chris go like this while he's talking to you, a no is coming your way. Just be ready for that. It is just going to happen. So prepare for that. If you lean forward like this, you might be getting towards a yes. It was just a tell that he had.
Yeah.
And I used to tell him, Chris, I know you're going to say no. The arms, they're up. I see them. It's fun too in a way because you get to learn how people physically present themselves ahead of time. It's a reliable, not flawless way to interact with people. So that's what I'd say mirroring about. And then a level deeper is just learning really, really what they care about. With Chris, in the example I gave, you have to speak his language in numbers.
Right.
But what he cares about is talking about objective things that can be tracked over time, as opposed to a more subjective thing, which you might need to do when you're speaking to HR, for example. I don't know.
Right.
And that's how I think about that. I love doing that and teaching that. And then people acquire a new skill that they didn't have before. This is no different than being a bartender, by the way. If you're a bartender and you're running a good bar, and I've done that a long time ago, you can see when people don't want you to come near them, even if their glasses are empty, even if their money is down, they're having a conversation, they don't want to be interrupted, keep it moving. And then you look over here, and there are people who are like,
Yeah. Give me a
and that's
beer.
where
Come
you're
on.
gonna go. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Those are the instincts. Maybe that's where I got them. I don't know.
Well, I suspect you got the that ability to understand people's tells and read people from your father asking you so many detailed questions to observe the world around you.
Yeah,
And
you're exactly right.
and you honed it as a bartender. And maybe you missed your calling from HR because you might have been able to uh, do some great things on the HR space because people are messy and it takes a lot to understand what people are thinking.
HR and legal. I mean, I love working. I love learning. That's why I love cross-functional work because you learn from. If you want to, you can learn from everybody, and no day is the same. But HR, legal, and finance, I would say, are pretty much my three favorite groups to partner with because you get that's that whole stained glass window. Like you get to do that subjective work, that unpredictable work. You get to do that planning and strategic work. And then you get to learn about the business from a legal and a regulatory standpoint, working with legal and attorneys. I love it.
I could do without the legal side of things, but certainly HR and finance are good partners. Hey, my brother's a lawyer, so I can joke
Liz,
about that.
oh no, I hope he doesn't see this episode.
Oh, I'm sure he will, and he'll give me a hard time at Christmas when I see him next. But um, okay, so we're running out of time, but I do want to ask one more question. Oh, and you'll have to come back because we've just scratched the surface on the value that you can bring to the conversation. So. If you were to leave one piece of advice for someone who's trying to find that authentic leadership voice, you clearly have found it for yourself. What would you say to that person?
where my son's going to come in because I asked him that question today too. I was talking to him about this. He's 21 and he goes to Stevens and he'll be a senior. So he'll be doing computer science work and he'll be dealing with stakeholders, everything that we do. And authenticity to me is first understanding where you're at. If you can be bold enough to ask people around you, where do you see me succeed? Where do you see my gaps in my communication, in my decision making, in my leadership of people? And of course, you're going to have to ask the people who report to you, as well as a lot of other people. But you have to be bold enough to ask those questions, because in order to grow into authenticity, you have to understand what you already have and where you are, as opposed in addition to where you're not. That's number one. Don't be afraid. I would say most of the time, the question that you're afraid to ask is always the one that you should ask.
Oh, that's good.
Number two, the answers are all around you. They're all around you. So wherever it is that you live and whatever you're doing every day, you admire people for their skills. Whether you might come home and say, the guy at the deli, at the Stop and Shop, he's always on top of things. He always knows my order when I come in. He's friendly. He never looks frazzled, even though there's 80 people ordering 80 things. So this is a person who knows how to manage their time. And you're appreciating that. You're talking about that. So is that something that you're great at? Or is that something that you need to be great at because it's resonating with you for some reason? Your child's basketball coach might be awesome under pressure, or is a great translator. He's talking to the kids in one way, turns around, and then he talks to the parents about the same exact thing in different words. That person knows how to synthesize and speak to different audiences. Why is that resonating with you? Is that because you're great at it too? Or is that because you do not have that? So I would also say the second thing is just look around your life and look at people and what they're doing and why that attracts your attention. As a leader, you can pick these things up. What you don't have, you can borrow. I had a boss named Maureen Cleveland, best boss I ever had, who used to say to me, Nancy, inspect what you expect. One of the great, I don't want to be a micromanager, but I also don't want to be so hands off that people don't think they can come to me and I'll know exactly what they're talking about within a few iterations.
Right.
I didn't have that, but then I got it because she told me about it and I picked it up. You don't use it every day, but there are times when you can. The third thing is, as you're going through this, tell people that you're doing it so that you can set some expectations. You might say to your teams, somebody told me about inspect what you expect. And I want you guys to know that sometimes I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. And that's because I just want to be a little closer to the work so I can help you better when you have an escalation. But report to them and tell them, I'm working on some gaps that I have. I asked you 2 weeks ago about some gaps. That's why I did that. Now I'm going to put some of those things into action so that they're not looking at you like, what kind of morph weirdo are you now? 2 weeks ago, you never asked me this. Now you are. Is that because of me? Am I doing something wrong? Share what you're doing. Those are the three things I would say.
Oh, those are great words of wisdom. So Nancy, I can't thank you enough for joining us on the Leadership Puzzle today. And I think everyone is gonna agree that you are truly an amazing leader with so much to share. Whether it's eliminating the chaos, whispering into the swirl, or just reminding us to show up and make sure that we are paying attention to the world around us and living with purpose and being present in every single conversation. Thank you for joining us. And
my pleasure. My pleasure.
And if you've enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share with a colleague. And if you're ready to take your people strategy to the next level, visit us at evolvehrs.com. So until next time, keep leading, keep learning, and keep solving your leadership puzzle.